dialing it back to his old days with St. Louis and Arizona. Buy or sell, Goldie will finish top 7 in fantasy first baseman.
No, I'm going to say no. I think he'll fall off. Older player here, he'll be top 10, but not top 7 here. Top 10, I would say I buy it. Top 7, I'm going to say no here. I think he'll put up decent numbers here. Not as good as he was. I don't think he's going to bat 340, 350 all year long.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I'm with you in that you're going to have to take calculated risks. And that's what Leon Rose has been about since he's been here. And he's been measured. He hasn't been gung-ho in terms of mortgaging this franchise's future for immediate gains. They have had a prudent approach, and you're going to have to roll the dice in certain respects to get to that top level. And you're right, Donnie, when you look at next season, all things considered, you hope that they're healthy, and if they roll over, say, 85 to 90% of this roster, this is a top 3 team in the East. With Boston coming down, Milwaukee's going to come down, and so you have to figure it's going to be Indiana, the Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers in some sort of order in the preseason rankings. And so where they go from here, Jason Kidd is obviously the hot name right now. Both sides are interested from what we've heard in terms of Kidd and the New York Knicks. Is he that championship caliber coach to take the Knicks there?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Every 5 days, it's really exciting when Skeens pitches, and it's terrible watching him pitch because every time he pitches, they don't score.
Having him hit the lineup probably would actually help when he pitches. There's no way to do it because you can't, but it's beyond frustrating. And the numbers will tell you, the books have adjusted.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. The Stanley Cup Finals officially in the books. Another championship for the Florida Panthers. We will break it all down for you and also hear from the game-winning coach in Paul Maurice, also Connor McDavid on the losing side as well. Simon Applebaum will be with us to tell us who's actually watching the Stanley Cup Finals as well as other sports. Pat Evans will join us from Legal Sports Report, and we'll break down the latest in Major League Baseball with Mark Zinno on the show as well. All right, so let's get started. Wow, 3 straight finals appearances and 2 straight championships. The dynasty has begun for the Florida Panthers, who take care of the Edmonton Oilers in 6 games. It is official. It was a blowout, 5-1. Sam Reinhart had 4 goals in this one, which means no team from Canada has won now for more than 3 decades. The Panthers led this one from start to finish. They also had an empty net goal late in this one and then partied into the night with the Stanley Cup. There are some photos of the cup already being slightly broken. I'm not really sure what they were doing with that overnight. But let's hear from Paul Maurice. In case you missed it, after the game ended, a lot of the first-time cup winners for the Panthers raised the cup.
But what was it like for you watching all the first-time Cup guys get the cup first after Barkey?
Those are the small, maybe, insights for people into this group. When the awareness of, it doesn't go captain to captain to captain to Sam Reinhart, who scored 4. The awareness of each other. All of those guys who touched it first, it was their first cup. So that's what makes these men special. To be aware of that. They're just not selfish at all. They don't need the camera time. They're not trying to put themselves, there's no pecking order. So it didn't have to go from Barkov, to Ekblad, to Matthew. It went to all the guys who hadn't done it before.
Meanwhile, on the losing side, Connor McDavid goes to back-to-back finals, but doesn't pick up his first championship. A pretty despondent McDavid after Edmonton is going home.
Lost to a really good team. Nobody quit. Nobody threw the towel in. They're a heck of a team. The Stanley Cup champions back-to-back for a reason.
What's the difference in the series?
I mean, obviously their forecheck was great. They tilted the rink. They were able to kind of stay on top of us all over the place. Never really able to generate any momentum up the ice. We kept trying the same thing over and over again, just banging our heads against the wall. So credit to them. They played well.
Tough season for Edmonton, but everyone's celebrating here in South Florida in Sunrise with the Panthers winning the championship. No celebrating going on in Illinois. Some fighting, in fact, back and forth with the new sports betting taxes coming into play. The governor of Illinois signed the state's latest budget plan into law, which places a 25-cent charge on every online wager placed in the state. How is FanDuel and DraftKings responding to that? Well, they're putting their own fees involved on July 1st. Unless there is a recanting of that on the transaction fee by September. If they do, then DraftKings and FanDuel won't put their own tax on sports bettors. But if they don't, they're going to try and get their piece of the pie as well. Meanwhile, if you're looking to bet on celebrity boxing in the future, in the state of Massachusetts, you're going to have an issue because the Gaming Commission is now requiring all sports betting operators to notify them before offering bets on some of these non-traditional events. This also stems from the discussion, of course, that goes back to last year's fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. Some speculation as to whether or not you should have been able to even bet on that fight in the future in Massachusetts. You're going to have to check with them before you can make it available. Availability is the key question going into tomorrow night's NBA Finals game for Tyrese Halliburton. Right now, he's going to probably play. I think that's what it sounds like, but he's undergoing an MRI to determine the severity of this calf strain that he has. Seems like questionable is probably the best way to determine his availability for tomorrow. Check back on tomorrow's show. We'll probably have more answers. Over to Major League Baseball we go. How about the Dodgers taking care of the Padres yet again yesterday? 8-6, very heated game, by the way, back and forth. But LA has taken care of business now against the Padres in consecutive games. Here's Dave Roberts after the game on the win.
And at that point in time, Shohei comes up with the base open, and Vasquez took one shot at him and then hit him again. And it's very hard to miss that bad with a right-handed pitcher. So for me, it's, if you're going to do it, own it. And there's no misfire, right? And then I just felt that I didn't feel a warning on both sides was warranted. Number one. And so I just wanted to know an explanation. I wanted an explanation on their thought process. I didn't come in hot. I just wanted to know why they issued. And at that point in time, I realized later I got tossed, which I didn't understand or appreciate. And even looking back and to see Mike get the opportunity to talk to umpires after I was tossed and their explanation, and he was still in the game. So I think what anyone wants is consistency, right? And so for me is I wanted an explanation, what's going on forward of their decision making, and I got run. And so for me, it's just there was no consistency, and I just wanted feel for the game, and that's what I asked for, and I feel we didn't get it.
Unfortunately for the Dodgers, no consistency but a win. Same could be said for the New York Mets. Austin Riley with a sacrifice fly in the 10th inning, and the Braves come back to beat the Mets 5-4. Here's Juan Soto, whose team took the loss last night.
Juan, just how difficult a play is that when you're caught in between first and second and can't see if he made the catch or if it bounced off the wall?
I mean, we rely on the umpires, so we wait for them to make the call. We have some like that early this year too, and the goal is look for the umpire and make sure he makes the right call. But I felt like he just took way too long to make the decision, and it just put me in a tough spot.
Like you said, that's the second time something like that has happened this season. How frustrating is that?
It's just part of the game. It just at the end, we just got to look like we messed it up. We just got to learn from it. Next time, I mean, I don't know. We probably make decisions on our own because I was trying to make sure he caught it or they make the right call, and he just took forever to do it.
Meanwhile, Javi Baez's reclamation season continues with the Detroit Tigers. He homers twice and they beat the Pirates by a final score of 7-3. Meanwhile, the New York Yankees continue to struggle on offense. Kyle Hendricks takes care of them. This time, the Angels hand the Yankees their third straight shutout. That's right, 4-0 was the final. Yankees having a hard time scoring over the last week or so. Here's Cody Bellinger on the team feeling it.
Yeah, I think that it's been a fight. Obviously we're not getting the job done with runners in scoring position. Not getting a lot of base runners, not causing traffic. So, we got to keep going and wake up tomorrow and we got to get going.
Aaron mentioned he thought tonight he felt like guys were maybe pressing a little bit too much at the plate, trying to get something going. Did you feel that out there?
Yeah, I think, it's always a certain point where, it's not necessarily going your way and you feel it and you kind of feel this extra pressure to get the job done. At the end of the day, it's the same game. And, we had good conversations. We're going to have good conversations. We're going to keep going and we're going to keep playing for each other and, get out of this thing.
MVP type season continuing for Seattle Mariners catcher Cal Raleigh. He had a grand slam yesterday. He leads the majors in home runs, and Seattle ends up beating Boston 8-0. Brian Wu pitched well in that game. Sal Perez home run, and the Royals beat the Rangers 6-1. And don't look now, but the Reds are playing great baseball. TJ Friedl drives in a couple. Cincinnati beats Minnesota 6-5. Mark Zinno weighs in on the latest in Major League Baseball when we come back next on NewsWire.
13 totals, 19.5 wins. I told you to go under, and it's by far the best bet I have recommended on this network in 4 years. They can't get out of their own way. And now Sloot is out for the year. Let's hope Sloot gets back because I respect the hell out of Sloot, and I want her to go out on her own terms. Hopefully we'll have her back for the 26th season.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I got a feeling Pittsburgh's going to the Super Bowl. I got a feeling there is no chance they're going to the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. I'm just kidding.
They're still not expected to have over 8.5 wins. They're still not expected to have a winning record. Now, I know things could change for the next 24 hours. I get that. But everyone expected Aaron Rodgers to sign with him. He's going to sign with him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of
15.5 point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
And welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We got Mark Zinno in the house breaking down some Major League Baseball. In a week from now, we're going to have this run of all baseball, basically, until we get to the NFL training camps, which are about a month away. So let's get right into it as Mark joins us here on the show. Mark, thanks for coming on. And certainly, Yankees fans are going to panic here a little bit. They're having a hard time scoring runs, but the season is very long. And the other thing that I would say, Mark, is that don't you feel like we go through this every year with the Yankees? They have this stretch of no one's hitting, no one's doing anything, everyone's panicking, and somehow in the end they're making the postseason. Does that seem fair, or is there something different about it this time?
There's nothing different about it, but people have to recognize what the Yankees are.
And what the Yankees are is a business. They're not a team in the business of winning World Series. They're in the business of making money. And that's what they do, and they do really well. This is a flawed roster. 2 years ago, it was Aaron Judge and 8 jabronis. Last year, it was Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, and 7 jabronis. And now we're back to Aaron Judge and 8 jabronis. Paul Goldschmidt's batting $170 in the month of June. Cody Bellinger's batting .226. I mean, you should not be surprised by any of this. It's a poorly constructed roster that does not have a lot of power top to bottom in the lineup, does not have the ability to drive in a ton of runs. A lot of these guys played over their head the first one. Do we really think Ben Rice is a guy who can hit 8 home runs a month? Do we think Ben Rice is a 35 home run guy? Stop it. Stop it. Like, don't delude yourself into thinking that that's not reality. So all these guys who got off to good starts, save Aaron Judge, they're all going to regress. And if Aaron Judge isn't the guy creating runs, driving in runs, and producing runs, guess what? The Yankees don't score them. That's the reality of this roster. The sad part is the pitching is actually held up. Will Warren, who is not a major league starter, if he's only giving up 4 runs, that's a game theoretically the Yankees should win because Will Warren usually gives up about 8 runs. But yet somehow he gets the ball every 5th day from the Yankees and he gets to go out there and pretend he's a major league pitcher. I don't understand why, but that's a whole different conversation. The Yankees are a flawed roster. They'll win the American League East because nobody else is good enough to beat them. And that speaks more of the other 4 teams in the American League East. But this is not a team that you should take as a serious threat to win a World Series because they're not constructed like a team that can win the World Series. So, again, I go back to what I said. The Yankees are in a business of making money, not in the business of winning World Series.
The Rays, really since May have been a really good team. I think they're probably under the radar more than any team in baseball, being 7 games over 500. There's no one talking about them. We know that at deadline time, Mark, they're also a team that is willing to get aggressive with trades and adding guys on 1-year deals. I mean, they're never going to take on Devers or anything like that, but they're always willing to fight a little bit. Boston certainly has taken a step back. Toronto's still in there. I'm not sure I'm a believer there in them, but I guess I would ask you, is Tampa a legit threat to New York? I think Tampa's a legit threat for the postseason, that's for sure.
I mean, listen, Tampa, if it's one thing they've done well over the last 5 to 7 years, is beat the Yankees. So, yes, they're a legitimate threat. Do they have enough pitching to sustain them? I mean, look, Zach Littell and Shane Baz and Ryan Pepio, these guys, they turn in good starts, but are they high-quality starters? I think there's a difference, right? And I don't know that they can, and even if they get to the postseason, I don't know that those guys are legitimate pitchers that are going to go out and beat a team in a 5 or 7 game series. Maybe they do it in a 3-game wild card series, but over a longer series, I don't know if they have enough starting pitching to get you through. Their bullpen's great, no doubt about that. But they're scoring runs right now, the Rays are. After struggling the first couple of months, particularly on the road to score runs, they're figuring it out. And Steinbrenner Field is a little bit of a bandbox, and they're scoring a lot more at home, and they're taking advantage. So, yeah, the Rays are going to be there.
Now, let's move to the National League West, where, unlike previous years, Mark, the Dodgers during the regular season are dominating the Padres. Usually this is about even, or San Diego's had their number. Not so much this year, and not a lot to speak about here. The Padres have beaten them down once. Other than that, I mean, I don't see only 1-run game here in the first 5 games that they played against each other. And I know that the Dodgers did have a big hit last night to win. I don't know. Are the Padres seemingly still built for the postseason at this point? It seems like they've taken a little step back to me.
Something has happened to the lineup. That's the problem. The pitching has been there for them, but they have not been scoring runs over the past month. If you go back to May 19th, the bottom 5 in the league in runs scored. They're just not hitting the ball well. And when they do hit the ball well, their pitching doesn't show up. And that's a bad combination to have over the stretch here. And again, you kind of look at those numbers against, they've got to figure out a way to go ahead and beat them. The last couple of years, they've had the Dodgers number during the regular season. Obviously, the Dodgers got the better of them in the postseason. But, again, for the Padres and the other 3 teams in the NL West, it's going to be a dogfight all the way through the end of September for positioning, for seeding, for the top of the division. Maybe if the Dodgers slip a little bit, it's going to be interesting to see how the NL West shakes out.
Let's go to the National League East, where the Mets have been struggling a little bit lately. The Braves are hoping to climb back into the race. I know their general manager Alex Anthopoulos says that they will not be sellers. They will be at least holders or buyers at the deadline. They're still 7 games under 500 and really far behind the Phillies and Mets. Mark, the Nationals are there too. By the way, probably biggest disappointment, I think, in baseball to see Washington lose 10 games in a row with that roster. That should not happen. And then Miami right behind them. So let's focus on the Braves here a little bit. Can the Braves legitimately jump back in it? I mean, they have more talent than anybody else 7 games under 500. They just haven't shown it.
No, this team is done. I think that you're overstating their talent. After Ronald Acuna, people are starting to play to the back of the baseball card, and it's not really impressive. I'll give Austin Riley his due, but Matt Olson has been a 230 hitter his entire career. The year that he had 50 home runs was the outlier. That's not the norm for him. So he's playing to the back of his baseball card. Ozzie Albies is playing to the back of his baseball card, which is good, not great. The problem is that the Braves starting pitching is in shambles right now. Chris Sale, who won the Cy Young last year, still pitching very well, but he's not pitching to the level he was last year. And the Braves bullpen is a hot mess. So this is not a team I expect to be able to have any contention in the NL East. And I don't think they make the playoffs. I think they'll hover around 500, fight for that last wild card at some point in time. But ultimately, I think they fall up short. This is not a very well-rounded, well-constructed team at this point.
Fair enough. Mark, great to catch up with you here on NewsWire. Got college football and pro football right around the corner. Thanks again for coming on.
You got it, Craig. Thank you.
All right, Mark Zinno joining us, talking some Major League Baseball. Coming up next, it's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. We'll get into the latest at training camps around the NFL, our final look before the preseason begins, and also the Magic make a big trade and introduce their new player. We'll be back with more NewsWire after this.
Their team total is 19.5 wins. I told you to go under, and it's by far the best bet I have recommended on this network in 4 years. They can't get out of their own way. And now Sloot is out for the year. Let's hope Sloot gets back, because I respect the hell out of Sloot, and I want her to go out on her own terms. Hopefully we'll have her back for the 26th season.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I got a feeling Pittsburgh's going to the Super Bowl. I got a feeling there is no chance they're going to the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. I'm just kidding.
They're still not expected to have over 8.5 wins. They're still not expected to have a winning record. Now, I know things could change for the next 24 hours. I get that. But everyone expected Aaron Rodgers to sign with him. He's going to sign with him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of 18.5 point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
One month away from NFL training camps opening. We're almost there. So it's time now to take an inside look at the Baltimore Ravens, the New York Giants, and we'll also end on the big trade that the Orlando Magic made this past week. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. Well, it's another season where we go into the year wondering if the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson are going to win a Super Bowl, right? I mean, you hear this so many times going into the year with this team. Always on the brink, never quite winning it. Well, we'll see if this is their opportunity this year. The Ravens have approached the offseason very similar to years past. They'll look a little bit different on a lot of different positions. But Lamar Jackson in the offseason said that he and his teammates worked together a lot, trying to create a little bit more camaraderie as training camp is a month away.
I feel like just bonding with my guys will help us out a lot more, just on the field, just picking each other's brain, being around each other a lot more. We'll probably know what one of us is thinking ahead, like we on the field, something going on. He already know what I'm thinking. I don't got to say too much, Look over there. I got D-Hop now. These guys, they know what I'm thinking without me saying too much. And that's bonding off the field, so that's why I want to get my guys together. Just things like that, small things like that.
A couple of years ago, you had requested potentially to play with either DeAndre Hopkins or Odell Beckham. Hopkins now.
Yeah.
What does it feel like to get him on this team now?
Man, I'm just gonna say that guy dope, man. He's different, man. I seen him. I threw him like a shallow today. He caught the ball so smooth, got up like I don't even think he put his other hand on the ground to get up. He just caught the ball and just saw it. I'm like, bro, that's some vet type stuff, like some super vet type stuff. It's just dope to have him, man. I'm looking forward to throwing a lot of touchdowns to him this year.
You'll see if Hopkins can create his days of glory. When were those, by the way? Houston Texans 3-4 years ago? Same could be said for Jameis Winston. Will he get another shot to start this year at quarterback? He's now with the New York Giants, still sort of wondering who's going to start, who's going to be the backup. Giants do have some options, including a young rookie coming in, but that has not stopped Winston from talking about this opportunity to start, which sits in front of him.
I'm grateful that I can bring joy to the game. I'm grateful that through my hard work and effort on the football field that people notice me by my character. So that's just something that comes with it. This is the greatest game in the world. So we need to be able to, drop our hair a little bit and notice that everyone has their own individual role. And I know what I've done in this NFL league in terms of playing football. And I'm grateful that I had that experience. But I also know that when I first came into this league, that I wasn't looked upon as a man of high character. I wasn't looked upon as that team-oriented guy. I had this perception of me that just wasn't true. And through my course of diving in and growing every single year, I've proven myself to be who I am. And I think that is the greatest compliment that someone can give you, is that you're truly who you are, despite the character or the giggles. I think if you ask any of my teammates, any of my coaches, who I am, they would say Jameis is truly who he is.
Well said by Winston. Seems like I'm just waiting for this guy to end his career to get into broadcasting. That's going to be fun. Okay, so the Orlando Magic are trying to make upgrades this offseason. They had a really good finish to the NBA season and thinking about doubling down on that. The acquisition that they made last week was acquiring Desmond Bane, who says that he found out about the trade while he was on vacation.
Yeah, it's been moving fast. I was on vacation in Destin, Florida. So I was already in the state, which made it a little easier to get here. But it's been great, man. I mean, obviously leaving everybody behind in Memphis will be tough. I made some really good relationships and friendships there that won't end there. I mean, we'll continue to talk and stay in touch. But I'm super excited to be here. I mean, all the guys, they've reached out and hit me up. The front office, support staff, everybody's been real supportive, and you can tell there's an excitement in the air, as well as expectations, and expectations are healthy, and I feel like we have the roster to be able to do some really special things. So I'm excited and looking forward to the new chapter.
We'll see when the NBA season, and by the way, opens up pretty quick after this season ends. We've still got another game to play tomorrow night. One more. Coming up next, Pat Evans joins us from Legal Sports Report. Stay with us. More NewsWire coming up next. dialing it back to his old days with St. Louis and Arizona. Buy or sell, Goldie will finish top 7 in fantasy first baseman.
No, I'm going to say no. I think he'll fall off. Older player here, he'll be top 10, but not top 7 here. Top 10, I would say I'd buy it. Top 7, I'm going to say no here. I think he'll put up decent numbers here. Not as good as he was. I don't think he's going to bat 340, 350 all year long.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I'm with you in that you're going to have to take calculated risks. And that's what Leon Rose has been about since he's been here. And he's been measured. He hasn't been gung-ho in terms of mortgaging this franchise's future for immediate gains. They have had a prudent approach, and you're going to have to roll the dice in certain respects to get to that top level. And you're right, Donnie, when you look at next season, all things considered, you hope that they're healthy, and if they roll over, say, 85 to 90% of this roster, this is a top 3 team in the East. With Boston coming down, Milwaukee's going to come down, and so you have to figure it's going to be Indiana, the Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers in some sort of order in the preseason rankings. And so where they go from here, Jason Kidd is obviously the hot name right now. Both sides are interested from what we've heard in terms of Kidd and the New York Knicks. Is he that championship caliber coach to take the Knicks there?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Every 5 days, it's really exciting when Skeens pitches, and it's terrible watching him pitch because every time he pitches, they don't score.
Having him hit the lineup probably would actually help when he pitches. There's no way to do it because you can't, but yeah, it's beyond frustrating. And the numbers will tell you, the books have adjusted.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire. Let's check in with Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report, the very latest in sports betting going on across the country. We'll dive into the state of Wyoming. Could they be following suit like Illinois, raising taxes on sports betting? We'll get to that and a whole lot more. First, let's start off with Pat and hit on online casino gaming in Massachusetts. I know this is a hot topic for us here on the show. Some states say yes, some states say no. Where does Massachusetts stand?
Yeah, so to your point, a ton of states have been talking about online casino this year. Not much has happened in terms of legalization. Of course, there's the 7 or 8 states across the country that have it, and it's been slow compared to sports betting getting rolling legally. But yeah, in Massachusetts, we have Senator Paul Feeney and Rep. Daniel Cahill. They've introduced a bill back in February in both of their respective chambers. It is now going to a joint hearing, so members of both the Senate and House will sit on a committee next Monday and talk about online casino in Massachusetts. Of course, this is one of the most active states in terms of regulatory action, so that will be really interesting to watch. It would open up, if it does end up passing all the chambers and necessary steps, it would open up each of the 3 casinos in Massachusetts to have up to 2 online gambling operators along with their sports betting options, also for untethered licenses. So it could be a pretty vibrant market up there in Boston. We'll see what happens. This, of course, as I just mentioned, is a very active regulatory body. The Massachusetts Gaming Commission Chair, Jordan Maynard, actually just came out recently and called on a federal framework for advertising, which, of course, we know, as we've talked about on the show, up in Canada, similar legislation to that has been filed. So we'll see if Maynard's call could bring any sort of excitement to that. He also says there should be a national exclusion network, not just state by state. So, it's interesting to have that dichotomy of the regulator calling for more regulation, more, he said the online gambling industry has gone off the highway. There's no guardrails on it and things like that. So very interesting to see that state now considering even more online gambling as their top regulator saying, hold on, there's a lot going on here that we need to keep in check. Also of note up in New England is the Maine House and Senate have approved a online casino bill just kind of quickly out of the blue. And it is going to an appropriations table, which every legislation that has a fiscal note needs to. Weirdly, only 10% of bills that go to the appropriations table end up passing. So Maine, it has some tough sledding ahead. But yeah, New England Online Casino this year seems to be pretty active, apparently.
All right, now let's move to the state of Wyoming. Are they watching very closely what's going on in Illinois and trying to raise taxes as well there?
Yeah, Wyoming, again, kind of an interesting note. They've talked about online casino earlier this year. I should say that. But yeah, there's a legislative committee that went ahead and they've sent forward or proposed 3 tax hikes in the gambling world. That includes a doubling of online sports betting. It's not a huge market. Of course, it's the smallest state population wise. So it's, certainly not a big amount of money. But the sportsbook operators certainly don't like seeing their tax rates double and they have to pay more. We'll see what happens. It could pass. It'll be tough sledding, I think, in the long run. They're a pretty free state up there, so we'll see what happens. Of note, the chair of this legislative committee said, kind of similar to Maynard in Massachusetts, that we've let them come in, have pretty much free reign. We need to tighten up things a little bit and make sure we're getting what we need to get out of this, and we can tighten up the regulations a little bit. So we'll see. Wyoming, again, tiny state, not that much money to be made up there. So the state probably wants to bring in more. The sports books would like to keep more, not see that tax pass. But again, early on in this process, but a doubling, which of course we saw fail earlier this year in Ohio when Governor Mike DeWine proposed jumping from 20 to 40% in the budget. That didn't pass, but remember, Ohio did double theirs from 10 to 20% 2 years ago, so similar to Wyoming. And yeah, to your point, Illinois is an interesting tax situation. And last year they passed the tiered system that took it from 15% flat tax to a 20 to 40%, depending on how much revenue the sports books make. And then this year went ahead and added those per bet taxes of 25 cents for the first 20 million bets, and then 50% for every bet after that, which of course FanDuel and DraftKings have then said, well, if that's the case, we're going to add a 50-cent per bet transaction fee, which you can bet bettors in Chicago are not a fan of. And then of course you've got tax raises in Maryland from 15 to 20% in the budget process, and then a couple points raised from 15 to 21% down in Louisiana. Taxes, always a fun topic when it comes to sports betting and online gambling here at LSR.
Taxes and fun. Never thought I'd hear those two words together, but here we are on the show.
You don't like doing your taxes?
Right. Oh. Speaking of which, let's get to Ohio. A potential idea, advice from one of the legislative people out there thinking of what the future of sports betting could look like from tax perspective.
Yeah, so U.S. Representative Mike Rowley, a Republican from Ohio, has proposed using the sports betting federal excise tax, which is 25% or 0.25% on overall handle on immigration on ICE, to help fund ICE, which of course is the topic du jour of national news. And so it's interesting to see sports betting get kind of drawn into that. It's nothing to sneeze at, really. I mean, what we're seeing is, you can read the report at LSR, but ICE spending is already $1 billion over what it's projected to be with 3 months left in the fiscal year. So there is need to find funding for this if those efforts from the Trump administration are going to continue. Well, the excise tax, which, there's been efforts from Rep. Dina Titus out in Nevada to completely repeal it because, it's kind of dated. It was started in the 50s to help combat gambling outside of Nevada. Well, now we're here and gambling's across the country, and you've got massive amounts of money going to it, 1.3 billion since PASPA fell. And that is earmarked. It just kind of goes. Titus has said she's asked, and nobody knows where it goes. So here you are. You have a lawmaker saying, well, let's put it towards ICE. And then, of course, there's been other proposals earlier this year from Senator Richard Blumenthal, who says, let's go ahead and put it towards responsible gambling frameworks and things like that. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. It may or may not go anywhere, but certainly interesting to see sports betting getting pulled into one of the most talked about issues in government right now.
And finally, Pat, anything else you're currently working on over at LSR this week?
Yeah, so New York went ahead. The Senate and House both passed a sweepstakes ban, and this, of course, comes after the Attorney General sent 26 cease and desist letters to sweepstakes casino operators, and that was after sweepstakes giant VGW had already announced their intent to pull out of New York. So New York becomes the 5th state to see the legislators say, hey, let's go ahead and ban these sweepstakes operators who have found loopholes to operate, not necessarily legally, but not illegally. And so that's interesting. Of note, one of those 5 states saw Governor Jeff Landry down in Louisiana veto that bill because he said it wasn't needed. We had the enforcement in place. Sure enough, yesterday, Louisiana Gaming Control Board sent out 40 cease and desist letters to sweepstakes operators, offshore casinos, and sports books, including Bovada and the like. And then Mississippi sent another 10 cease and desist letters to similar operators as well. So not a great day for those sweepstakes operators yesterday.
All right, Pat. Great to see you here on NewsWire. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks as always, Craig. See you next week.
All right. Sounds good. Pat Evans with us from LSR. Coming up next, the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals. The results are in. How many people were watching and viewing in both sports? Also, the U.S. Open nearly did not finish on Sunday because of a rain delay. How many folks were actually tuned in for J.J. Spawn's fantastic putt to end up winning the U.S. Open? Simon Applebaum will tell us when he joins us next on NewsWire.
On June 25th at 7:30 p.m., ditch the guesswork. Ben Stevens, Kevin Walsh, James Young, and Tom Vecchio have your NBA draft betting coverage pick by pick, bet by bet, all night long. We got all the insights and expert analysis because betting blind isn't a strategy. Coverage starts at 7:30 p.m. on June 25th, only on SportsGrid.
Plenty of takeaways from Yankees-Dodgers where LA sent a message on Saturday, and the only way the Yankees could salvage it was somehow beating Yamamoto, and they did.
You're staring a sweep in the face. And after losing the World Series, knowing what the opponent is, you know what the narrative would have been on Sunday Night Monday. Oh, the Yankees get swept by the Dodgers.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Does a guy like Giannis fit onto that roster if you can make some of those changes?
I just don't see a KD pursuit as being realistic for the Knicks. But hey, if they can pull a rabbit out of a hat, as Leon Rose oftentimes can, I'd go after Giannis in a heartbeat. It's just, what type of package could they entice for the Milwaukee Bucks? And is it a 3 or 4 team trade? It gets a little bit tricky in that regard.
You see the Knicks there with a plus 340 price.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
The Minnesota Vikings, J.J. McCarthy, who had such a good training camp last year, and it looked like he was pretty good, I believe, in the preseason, if I'm not mistaken, ended up going down for the full year. The Vikings are still obviously committed to him.
They knew that McCarthy was going to be available at some point in June. And McCarthy actually went on record last week. They confirmed 2 weeks ago he was cleared medically. He did work last week. And he's going to be their starter.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. The Stanley Cup Finals comes to an end. NBA Finals tomorrow night, potentially. But one event that did come to a fantastic end was the U.S. Open this weekend. Let's get the very latest on how many were viewing, streaming, and, as we say, consuming golf this weekend. We bring in Simon Applebaum from the podcast. Tomorrow will be televised. And, Simon, I know I was watching at the end and, kind of went into prime time there, which was, certainly unexpected. Did everybody tune in for the end after that rain delay of, I believe it was a couple of hours?
Well, as it turned out, Craig, when J.J. Spawn hit that 68-foot amazing putt on the final hole to become the only U.S. Open championship to be, and the only person in the U.S. Open to be under par, 9 million people were watching that putt. Now, that was not the case with the entire coverage on NBC this past Sunday, on Father's Day. The average was about 5.2, 5.3 million people. And by the way, a couple things. It did include the Peacock numbers, people watching on Peacock. It did not include out-of-home viewing, which is the first for the U.S. Open. It did not include whatever audience was turning away because of the rain delay. So all of that. So I have a hunch NBC, despite all of that, was very, very excited about the fact that because the delay forced the final hour, which was commercial-free, to be presented in prime time from 7 to a little past 8 o'clock Eastern time, that they were able to get the 7, 8 million, 9 million people that saw J.J. Spawn hit that putt. So I think NBC was very happy with the result. And by the way, the NBC USA overall average was 2.4 million people, which they're very happy with too.
Let's get to the NBA Finals. Game 6 is tomorrow night, Simon, and I think it was pretty obvious when you had two teams like Indiana and Oklahoma City in the finals that less people would be tuned in without a big market. Is it a significant number in this NBA Finals?
Craig, this is going to be the first NBA Finals where the viewership in terms of millions is going to be in single digits for the first time. Think about this. 10 years ago, believe it or not, 20 million people on average were watching an NBA Finals game on ABC. Now it's about 9 million. And I got to tell you something. There's a number of factors why here. Number one, obviously, as we've said this all along, the markets involved. Oklahoma City, as well as Indianapolis, Indiana. But something else, too, is happening, which is there are a lot of people who are very upset with ABC's coverage of the finals. Everything from you're not showing the starting lineups when the players come out, to it doesn't feel like a finals game. It feels more like a regular season game, early playoffs game. Did you notice that on Monday night, for the very first time since 2014, ABC showcased the starting lineups of the players coming out on the court, as opposed to, that screen with the starting lineups, all 5 for each team, and Mike Breen sort of going over it with Doris Burke and Richard Jefferson. That was the first time that's happened, as I said, in 9 years. So I think it tells you that people were listening. Adam Silver and the NBA people were very upset about the fact that they got all this feedback from the fans. They decided to do this. It's going to be interesting to see what happens tomorrow night. But even that, you still had 9.5 million people watching on Monday night, 9.2 million people average. That is way down in the area of like 19 to 22% from a year ago. So again, this may be the first time that you will see a single-digit viewership below 10 million on average for an NBA Finals.
Yeah, that's sort of stunning numbers, and I guess when we move over to hockey, we shouldn't be stunned. I mean, even here in South Florida, Simon, the ratings aren't really that good for the Panthers. So across the country and even in Canada, I mean, it's the same matchup as it was a year ago, and I find it compelling, but it feels like maybe some folks were sort of overloaded with the same matchup again this year.
And congratulations, by the way, to the Panthers for an outstanding series, back-to-back championships, third consecutive season they're in the Stanley Cup Finals, so you can make the dynasty talk, I'm sure, happen. The thing with the games was 2.7 million people, by the way, on average are watching these games. They are games that are on TNT and TBS, 2.3 million, by the way, on TBS, on TNT, the rest on True TV. But here's the thing. When the games were on last year on ABC, that was double, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3 million. So you have this sense that maybe the NHL, because of the fact that less and less people are watching on cable, because they're pulling off that cable subscription, that satellite subscription, and staying on smart TV sets and devices, that's the way they watch TV, that's why the Stanley Cup Finals viewership is way down. Now, they should get a lift next year on 2 counts. 1, it'll be on ABC again. 2, if they can get, let's say, a New York team, an LA team, a Chicago team involved. Similar thing to the NBA. You've got to get major markets involved in order to get the maximum viewership.
Simon, the United Football League season came to an end, and they're saying all the right things afterward. They were happy with the season. They were happy with the ratings. But I got to be honest with you, Simon, it feels like the end of the last year. I mean, I don't know how many years we got to keep doing this where they say it's going to change, if you pump up the quality of play, if you say more people are going to watch it, I mean, these numbers are dismal.
Craig, to be fair, I thought the quality of play, considering last year, was better this year. I think Jordan Ta'amu, by the way, from the DC Defenders, is a star. And if during the offseason they can get him in some endorsements, let's say, for advertisers, he might help the USFL. I think the UFL, by the way, next year is definitely going to be the final year if they don't do a couple things. Number one, they've got to improve the coverage on Fox where the on-camera talent is on camera, not off camera. Two, they have to have 2 teams to expand to, and they must be in at least one in a major market, whether it's New York, Chicago, LA, Miami, Dallas, Denver, somewhere where they can get and build a fan base. I think next year is the critical year for the UFL. If they do not boost the ratings from where they were this year, by the way, the average was 645,000. That was down 30% from a year ago. The championship game on Saturday, 983,000. That was down. Another big mistake, by the way, was that they scheduled this game on ABC. That was right, in prime time, but on the night before Father's Day, the night of Father's Day. When they did that last year, they had a better viewership.
Simon, we'll catch up again next week. Thanks for coming on NewsWire. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Craig. Take care. Enjoy the rest of the week.
All right. Simon Applebaum from the podcast tomorrow will be televised. The press conference yesterday in San Francisco featured Rafael Devers in his new Giants uniform. Barry Bonds. We'll have more on that when we come back next, and also the latest in the WNBA controversy. More coming here. We'll look for the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark. We'll be right back after this.
On June 25th at 7:30 p.m., ditch the guesswork. Ben Stevens, Kevin Walsh, James Young, and Tom Vecchio have your NBA draft betting coverage pick by pick, bet by bet, all night long. We got all the insights and expert analysis because betting blind isn't a strategy. Coverage starts at 7:30 p.m. on June 25th, only on SportsGrid.
Plenty of takeaways from Yankees-Dodgers where LA sent a message on Saturday, and the only way the Yankees could salvage it was somehow beating Yamamoto, and they did.
You're staring a sweep in the face. And after losing the World Series, knowing what the opponent is, you know what the narrative would have been on Sunday Night Monday. Oh, Yankees get swept by the Dodgers.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Does a guy like Giannis fit onto that roster if you can make some of those changes?
I just don't see a KD pursuit as being realistic for the Knicks. But hey, if they can pull a rabbit out of a hat, as Leon Rose oftentimes can, I'd go after Giannis in a heartbeat. It's just, what type of package could they entice for the Milwaukee Bucks? And is it a 3 or 4 team trade? It gets a little bit tricky in that regard.
You see the Knicks there with a plus 340 price.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
The Minnesota Vikings, J.J. McCarthy, who had such a good training camp last year, and it looked like he was pretty good, I believe, in the preseason, if I'm not mistaken, ended up going down for the full year. The Vikings are still obviously committed to him.
They knew that McCarthy was going to be available at some point in June. And McCarthy actually went on record last week and confirmed 2 weeks ago he was cleared medically. He did work last week. And he's going to be their starter.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid as we get ready to wrap up the show with some last licks. Got some topics, including a race that was supposed to happen with an NFL player and an Olympian, which appears to be off. Also, tensions are high in the WNBA. It seems like every night that Caitlin Clark plays, oddly enough. And also the latest in the Bay Area with Rafael Devers being introduced to the Giants. It's time now for some last licks. Yesterday, Rafael Devers' debut goes well. Ends up hitting a ball in the gap and doubles in his first at-bat with the Giants. But in case you missed it before that, Devers had his press conference where he was introduced as a new member of the Giants. Barry Bonds, former Giants legend, on hand. Of course, Buster Posey, who's now the president of baseball operations, on hand as well. And it would appear as though Devers has done a 180 on his opinion on playing third, on playing first, and just about playing anywhere. Devers telling reporters yesterday that he will begin taking ground balls at first base and is prepared to play the position for the Giants, the same position that he said that he would not play for the Boston Red Sox. Kind of an odd situation that happened in Boston as we start to hear more stories coming out about it, but Devers would not address them at yesterday's press conference. But it does appear as though he is happy in San Francisco. He feels loved there too. And Matt Chapman is their third baseman and is getting paid a lot of money, so you can't really see him playing third over him. But yeah, he's ready to play first. Also, some reports out there say that basically Devers was willing to play any position with Boston, but only if they didn't yank him back and forth in between positions, which they couldn't promise. Well, no longer employee of the Red Sox, seems to be working out in Boston. Okay, well, we thought this summer we were going to have a race going on, and it was going to be this weekend. It was the fastest man in the world, Olympian Noah Lyles from Team USA, had agreed to a race with the cheetah, Tyreek Hill. And they were going to have this race this weekend at Madison Square, or excuse me, at New York Times Square, not at Madison Square Garden. I don't think anybody would pay for that. New York Times Square. They were set to square off, no pun intended. And all of a sudden, yesterday, Noah Lyles made the announcement. You would think that this would maybe come from Tyreek Hill, but no. Noah Lyles said he's not going to race Tyreek Hill this weekend due to personal reasons. So we will not get to figure out who the fastest man in the world is. Maybe Lyles is just happy with knowing that he's the fastest man in the world and didn't want the challenge from Tyreek Hill. He said it's personal. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Speaking of Hill, there's always something personal going on with him too, here in South Florida. So maybe we'll just have to wait another year or two for that, because I do not see Tyreek Hill racing Noah Lyles during the NFL season, and the NFL season is coming fast. In fact, training camp opens next month. Now let's get to the WNBA, where it is all about Caitlin Clark. You may have heard while she was hurt and didn't play, ratings were down. But for some reason, players in the NBA just like taking their jabs at Caitlin Clark, both verbally and, as we saw last night, physically as well. In fact, one of the players she played against last night took a swipe with the hand, ended up catching Caitlin Clark in the face, to which Clark ended up, responding and, pushing the hand away. And then all of a sudden, a player on the other team just body checked Caitlin Clark to the floor and didn't get thrown out of the game. I don't know what is going on here, but it seems like every game that she's involved in, there is some sort of controversy. I can't figure it out. Clark seems to have lifted the ratings in the WNBA, the money in the WNBA. But as of right now, nothing seems to be changing. In fact, the head coach of the Indiana Fever, Stephanie White, said that everybody's getting better except the officials in the WNBA. A lot of people thought that that player should have been suspended for knocking Caitlin Clark to the ground. I don't know. Shots constantly being fired at the most popular player in the league. You would think the league would come in and say, hey, enough of this. We're doing well financially because of this person. Beats me. I got no idea. All right, that'll do it for the show today. We will be back again with another edition of the show tomorrow. We got Pharrell Coast to Coast. I'll be on today. I'm trying to figure out what time, but I will be on today with Scott, 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock Eastern. That's followed by Front Office Sports and in-game live game day tonight. We got Game Time Decisions, and Gabe can cry a little bit more about betting Edmonton in Game 1, in Game 2, in Game 3, in Game 4, in Game 5. At least Joe Madden came on the show yesterday and said, you know what, I'm out. I'm taking the Panthers. But no, Gabe just rode that thing into burning the money. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks again to Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report, Mark Zinno for coming on the show as well. Thanks to our director, Luke, and for my producer, Frank. I'm Craig Mish. We'll be back tomorrow with a preview of what could be the final game of the NBA season. So enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. We'll see you back here Thursday for our next edition of NewsWire.